All right, we're live, man.
We're rolling, baby.
We are
Grizz
rolling.
Nation. We got a special guest today, y'all. This is
Exactly.
per. We got a special guest, but I'm going to read it off his Twitter handle. His name is Dallas Hammer. He's a former Emmy award-winning sports journalist for KHQ, SWX, and KXLY/700 ESPN. He is a Blink 182 fan for lifer. And then he also runs a podcast over there in Idaho for their sports program, and it's called Tubbs at the Clubs. Dallas, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Angel. Very excited to sit here with you and Adam. You guys are catching me on a great day. For anybody that isn't super into pop punk, Blink 182's original lineup reunited today. So you guys caught me like on one of the best days of my life. So
Oh
That's
my
awesome.
gosh, I
you know,
bet. I
That's gonna,
bet.
gonna be awesome. Friday, man. Friday.
Can't come soon enough, man.
and
Can't
then
come
and
soon
then
enough.
Saturday when Idaho upsets the Grizz in Missoula, like man, gonna be a great weekend.
This is the type of podcast we're gonna have today. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. We're getting after it today, man. Let's do it, man. So
Yeah,
Dallas, how long
let's
have you
jump
been
in.
affiliated with the university?
So I went to Idaho from 2009 to 2013, and
Okay.
then I immediately graduated there. Started working here in Spokane, Washington, for a couple of those TV stations you mentioned. So it kind of always covered the team. Did that for 3 or 4 years, and then
Mhm.
uh, kind of left the media. Decided it really wasn't for me. The pay was pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
And podcasting was a lot more fun. So when Tubbs at the Club kind of started, I got kind of into that over the last few years, and here we are. So I like to think maybe I'm not on the pulse of Idaho football, but I know just enough to be dangerous when I'm talking about it.
There
There you
you go,
go.
man.
There
That's
you
good,
go.
man. That's good shit right there. Well, like I said, man, I mean, we are playing you guys this weekend. I think what time's kickoff? 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock Mountain Time?
We got
I
one
believe it's
Mountain, 12
1 o'clock.
Pacific.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So I guess, just kind of your initial thoughts of previewing your team right here. How are you feeling about it? Don't be afraid to be honest and say that you're a little scared. That's okay. But just, how are you,
No,
what's going through your mind?
I as much as you guys would probably love for me to say that, and I would have said that any other year you guys would have had
Uh-huh.
me on. This is the first year that I think, hey, Idaho's got a puncher's chance in this.
Yeah.
Honestly, most of the same talent from last year. Giovanni McCoy has been a revelation at the quarterback position. Played a handful of games last year. Didn't look particularly good, but nobody really did.
Hmm.
Coach Eck has really turned this offense around into something that consistently scores points, doesn't turn the ball over much. The defense plays a whole lot harder. There's no more 8 yard cushion of death, just giving guys free 5 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards. Idaho, it's a completely different team. Same players for the most part, but completely different team. This is going to be the first fun Grizz game for me in a while. The Little Brown Stein has a chance, and I know I'm on a Montana podcast. There is a small chance Idaho gets it back, and that has not existed since Idaho dropped down. So I'm
Well,
in pretty good spirits.
yeah. And the Hammer, like Angel and I were talking about, like when we last saw a Idaho team that was good, right? And I had to think probably before, the last time they were in the Big Sky, 95, 94 ish, where I think that I've told a couple friends and stuff, that Idaho is kind of like the sleeping giant, right? So they were really good in the Big Sky when they were here the first time. They left, joined the WAC, the Sun Belt, all those conferences kind of didn't do as well. But I think with this new coach, the way he's doing it with social media, he's an amazing that way. He's really got the backing of players, the backing of Idaho. I
Mhm.
really can see, the starts of something great. I'm kind of nervous just because I think this is probably the first team that we're going to be playing that could give us a legitimate go. And I know Idaho State was close at the end, but come on, let's be serious. They were really never really close.
Hmm.
But I think that this could be a closer game than people might expect. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even thinking about it, man, I mean, we were talking about it before, just kind of going back and kind of reviewing your guys' kind of, your playoff runs when you guys were in the 90s. I mean, it was, the semifinals, quarterfinals,
yeah.
I mean, it was consistent. You guys were absolutely dominating your guys' level of play, which is, I mean, I don't know if it was the best move. Why, if something's going good, why change it type of thing, you know? But I mean, we're just glad to have you back simply because this is a second oldest rivalry for our team. against yours. And you got some guy. You got a guy in Jason that has played or coached at Montana State, so he understands what a rivalry is. You know what I mean? And I mean, he's not taking it lightly. He knows that this is their Super Bowl. Just like everybody is when they play against Montana. That just is what it is. So I mean, and it's literally something that me and Adam were talking about a couple minutes while you were finishing up your dinner. It was literally, hey man, I mean, this team looks impressive. When you kind of start reviewing their whole season right now, I mean, they give Washington State a run for their money. So you saw the game against Indiana. I mean, maybe, what was it, midway through the third? That's when they really kind of started pulling away, right?
Yeah, I mean, Idaho had a lead at halftime. Like Idaho has looked very, very, very good. Mostly every game. I mean, they played two Power 5 schools, like you said. Washington State, Indiana, kind of took it to both of them. Had leads in the second quarter. Obviously, just I don't think it really had the depth to get back there. But the 10 years Paul Petrino, I mean 9 years that Paul Petrino was here before Jason Eck. Even when they were FBS, they were getting blown out by Power 5 schools, losing by 50 points to Wazoo. I think that game was like 69-7 the last time they'd played. It was like awful performance from Idaho, honestly, realistically, since they left the Big Sky. And that's a whole, we could get into like a 3-hour episode about that. But I don't know how your viewership skews, but Idaho still has a 25-game lead advantage in the Little Brown Stein. It just has been.
It does. That surprised me because I just found that out. And I played at the university. I never even thought, to actually take that in as a fact. But again, for the listeners out there, I mean, it's the only rivalry or only team that actually has a leg up on us over the span of, I think this started in 1903. I think I don't know what the specific record is, but I know you guys are up, and you guys are the only team to be up against us, which blows my mind. Granted, it's been a little skewed the past 30 years, but still, I mean, the fact that you guys still have that rivalry and it's been 30 plus years, I mean, it just blows my mind. So again, just kind of going back to what you said in the beginning of the podcast, it's going to be a fun game, man. It's going to be a really fun game.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at, I mean, realistically, since about 1991, you guys have had Idaho's number. I mean, obviously there's the 2 wins that Idaho's got, but every game has been a Montana win, and especially in the last, since Idaho dropped down, it has been painful from this side. You guys have probably had a blast with it, but on our side, it's a little tough. And Angel, I think you played in one of the first games from Idaho coming back, right?
I did, man. And let me tell you this. I mean, with all due respect, man, I did not like you guys at all. And it was one of those rivalries that, I mean, it was kind of like dissimilar. When I first got to campus and everybody was just backtracking a little bit, everybody was talking about, the Grizz Cat game. It was one of those rivalries that I just felt like I needed to dislike this team, but I didn't have an idea why. And it wasn't until I played them, that's when I realized I was like, okay, fuck these guys, excuse the French, but it just is what it is. And it was kind of the same situation with Idaho. I went into a game not wanting to hate you guys, but by the end of it and kind of seeing how there was all this back and forth, the intensity, you can cut the tension with a knife. I was like, you know what? Now I understand why this rivalry is so important. They don't like us, and there's no reason for us to like them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that might have been, what was it, that first year? Because it was 2017, I believe. I think that was the first year. No,
2018 was the first one.
2018. Yeah, that was the first one that I played in, and I was blown away by it. I was just like, dude, you know what? Fuck these guys. We're gonna get after it. Jesus, Like I said, with all due respect, bro.
No, I welcome it. And again, you're fine. I'm wearing a shirt that says fucking on it, so we're good here. But no, that 2018 game in Moscow, I was so excited. Obviously had no idea you were playing on the team at that time, but man, I hated you guys. I'm a legacy student, so my dad went to Idaho in the late 90s, or excuse me, the late 80s. So he kind of instilled this for me, and I know that it went dormant for 20 years, but the second Idaho went back to the FCS, it's like, all right, Montana, this is the one I'm circling. Got to punch these guys in the mouth, take that trophy back. Like there is obviously begrudging respect for just how your program has been over the last 25 years compared to Idaho's 3 winning records in 25 years. But I have to say I respect you guys a little bit. I hate you. And outside the confines of this podcast, I'd probably walk up, shake your hand, and tell you to fuck yourself. But,
there you go.
So, hey guys, let's get into we went over their Idaho schedule. You know, they're coming in preseason, didn't really get much love. You know, 9th, 8th was where you saw people putting them. They started the season off with 2, FBS losses, well to be expected, but played very well in those. But going off of those, played Drake, whopped them 42-14, played Northern Arizona, did really well in Northern Arizona, which is always a hard place to play.
That is an extremely tough place to play. I mean, just for the elevation purposes, somebody had told me one time that, the most competitive runners in the world, they'll actually head over to Flagstaff in order to train. So I've always struggled there. So the fact that they just, whooped on those boys, it was cool to see.
27-10. Then Northern Colorado, 55-35. So, that one kind of surprised me because that shows me that they can put up some points. And so it's crazy to see this team go from, not respectfully, nothing with Petrino, because he did nothing. That team, was a far better than what they played. And I don't know, you could see that the buy-in wasn't there. The buy-in is totally with first-year coach Jason Eck. And so it's good to see. But the talent level was there too. I don't think the development of the talent was happening. But Giovanni, hopefully I'm saying that, McCoy, number 1 passing efficiency right now in the nation, 72%, over 1,000 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, only has 2 interceptions. But so they're not having to use him that way, though, which I think kind of develops him a little bit better, where they're running the ball. They have a 3-headed monster of running the ball. They're doing really well of developing him. And Hammer, what do you think of, your quarterback? What do you see of it as his strengths? Because he hasn't shown the arm strength like full out, but he can use his legs. He can use his arms. It's going to be interesting to see, is he ready to play at Washington Grizzly Stadium with that fan base?
See, and I think the answer is yes. He's been a completely different guy than he was last year when he was getting garbage duty in a couple games. Specifically, I think of the Eastern game, coming in and throwing just a handful of picks in a game that was already a 50-point loss. Like, this is a different kid. He just that one extra year, and honestly, having a coach that I think believes in him, and a coach that also knows how to coach to get to kids' strengths. It's part of why Idaho runs the ball so heavily. Obviously, if you sit down with Jason Eck, that's what he wants to do. He wants to run the ball. I mean, he was the South Dakota State offensive coordinator for a very long time. Like, that's what they do. They run the ball. But he's trying to put the quarterback in a position to be successful. He also understands that Idaho's offensive line is probably the weakest point on the team. So one thing he's enabled McCoy to do a lot is just get the ball out quick, move around a little bit in the pocket, shift around, and then unleash, run if you have to. But we're going to run the ball a bunch. We're going to keep you in the pocket and not make you throw it a ton. He has had to throw more, I think, than was expected, which is great because he does have a rocket of an arm. The kid can throw it 60 yards on a rope without even thinking about it. It's honestly unbelievable. I'm shocked that he's even at this level with that arm. It's crazy to see, but his biggest strength to me is his decision making. He's really grown in that from game to game. Even Northern Colorado, and again, I know it's Northern Colorado. It's like throwing against air, but almost a perfect passer rating. Like, he only had a handful of incompletions that game, that game wasn't quite as close because Idaho, I think, admittedly put in a pretty poor defensive performance. Had some penalties. Take realistically a 14-point swing. It gave Northern Colorado an extra 7. Took 7 away from Idaho. So there's some sloppiness from the team overall, but McCoy, like you said, the most efficient guy in the country right now. And that's kind of what it's game to be, is unleash a couple big shots every once in a while, but we're going to protect you and not put you into 3rd and 15s and 3rd and 12s and even 3rd and 7s. We're going to give you those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, make this a little bit easier on you. Give you, I mean, again, he's still a redshirt freshman. He hasn't played a whole bunch. So that's the big focus for Idaho, is getting the ground game going so that McCoy, when he's asked to throw, it's not a difficult, huge conversion you got to make.
So, what do you think the game plan is? Obviously, when you're playing against one of the best defenses in the FCS with Montana, obviously, and they run a little bit of a unique scheme, obviously with that 3-3-5, and they really try to focus to challenge that offensive lineman in order to create those mistakes just out of habit. So what do you think he needs to do, or how he needs to lead the team in order to potentially put him in a position to maybe win a ball game? Who knows? You know what I mean?
He's got to keep protecting the football the way he is.
Okay.
The one issue with this Idaho team is that they do shoot themselves in the foot. I alluded
Mm-hmm.
to it with Northern Colorado. They had an unsportsmanlike penalty after ending it was like a 3rd and 20 that they forced an incompletion. Unsportsmanlike after the penalty, sports words are hard. Unsportsmanlike after the play ends up giving Northern Colorado a first down. McCoy launched a 70-yard bomb in the 3rd quarter that was taken away from hands to the face from an offensive lineman. So there's the explosive plays there for Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
but the big thing that they're going to ask McCoy to do is just don't turn it over. This is a game. If Idaho wants to win this game, they have to be perfect. They cannot turn the ball over. They can't get into the stupid penalties like they unfortunately have a tendency to do. And that's another discussion from 9 years of having an absolute terrible head coach. You have a lot to turn the program around from, but that's what they're going to ask McCoy to do. Don't turn it over. Make the smart call. And if it's 3rd and 7 and you've got nothing, just throw it away and live for the next drive. Don't make the back-breaking turnover.
Well, and that's what you saw with Idaho State. That was their game plan with their 3rd-string quarterback is don't beat yourself. If you don't have anyone open, just throw it out of bounds. We'll kick it. We'll live another day. And you can see that when we shot ourselves in the foot in the 4th quarter, that helped them. But one thing that I forgot to add when we were going over your schedule, both teams had bye weeks last week. Both teams are coming off byes. How is that going to affect Angel? And give us, Montana's pissed. Like the players are pissed because of how they, the ending score of the Idaho State game.
Yeah.
They're going to be pissed. They're going to be ready to go. Idaho, they're going to be ready to go too because they're going to be. They know what this rivalry means, and their coach, he's a good coach. When they hired Jason, I was like, oh man, crap. That's a really good hire. They're gonna turn this around. So how does that affect this game? I don't think I've seen, and maybe I haven't, just wasn't paying attention. 2 teams coming off byes into a rivalry game like this. That's gotta play into something. How's that going to play out in this game?
Mm-hmm. So, when I kind of think about it, man, bye weeks are tough. It's one of those things, when it's coming, that you get a little bit of break in a certain sentence. You'll practice hard, but you spend a lot of time really trying to recover. So it's really easy to fall off the game plan. I kind of look at that Idaho State performance as a little bit of a blessing, simply because it wasn't up to their standards. Obviously, they know that they're pissed for that simple reason that it should have been a different type of game. So that's all on their mind going into the bye week. Where I think they had that leg up against Idaho is that Idaho obviously had a pretty convincing win over Northern Colorado. So because of that, maybe the mindset might be different, but it's also tough because they're coming off a bye week, but then they have to travel all the way out here. And traveling is always a really hard thing to do, especially when you're going into an environment like Washington Grizzly Stadium. I will say, it doesn't seem to have affected them because they played their hearts out against Washington State, which is obviously a big crowd, and Indiana, which is obviously maybe even a bigger crowd too. So because of that, I don't necessarily think that the actual stadium itself is spooking them. But I do believe that how those weeks ended is going to play into, the performance that they kind of give this upcoming Saturday.
What do you think, Hammer?
I would argue the way that the bye weeks landed actually helps Idaho more than it helps Montana.
Really?
Because this is obviously, Angel, you have much more of a perspective on this, but Sacramento State and Weber State on the road are right around the corner.
Yeah.
Idaho has been kind of a cream puff for Montana over the last few years. Idaho just spent 2 weeks getting just pure ass chewings. The Northern Colorado win was win by 20, but they should have won that game by 50. They made Dylan McCaffrey look like a competent Big Sky quarterback. They made the McCaffrey family look like they knew what they were doing. And so Idaho, I have it on pretty good authority that Idaho's defense got some good ass chewing over the last couple of weeks. So I think Idaho's going to come into this with a bunch of motivation, because this is realistically, I mean, Idaho's got to go 2-2 here and be able to make the playoffs if they can realistically go 2-2 in the next 4 weeks. If they can beat Portland State, assuming that's the easy win, then you're looking at Montana, at Montana, at Sac State versus Eastern. I can't talk tonight. I'm sorry, guys. For a former journalist, you'd think I'd be better on television and prime podcasts.
Bro, I do it all the time, man. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. Sometimes after the show, I have to tell Adam, I said, hey, make sure you cut that bit out, just to make sure. And he'll be like, all right, man, good. But sorry about that. Go ahead, man.
No, you're fine. So looking at this, it's really like you've got to start picking off some wins here against some of the better teams in the Big Sky. I know Eastern their schedule is rough, but honestly, they have Murderers Row this year. Yeah. Sac State on the road is going to be tough. At Montana, obviously, this is a very tough thing, but it's the rivalry game. If you can circle this as, hey, this is a must win for us, Idaho wins this game, and all of a sudden playoffs are not just on the horizon, but playoffs are probable at that point. Beating, some would argue, the top team in the entire country. So Idaho, I don't see any issue with motivation for Idaho here because of how poorly the defense played against Northern Colorado and how truly important this game is for them if they want to make the playoffs this season.
Well, I think you probably guys need 3 more wins. 6-5, probably 6-5 will get you in.
So I could see them being a 7-win team, though. I mean, easily. I mean, just off the basic schedule, I do think that obviously this weekend, big old fat L, but that's okay. We're still gonna be all right. We're still gonna be all right. I see a win against Portland State. I think Sac State, they're just playing on a different level right now. That's gonna be tough to say. I do think ultimately ends up in a loss. I think they're gonna be a challenge for Eastern. I think they might even get the dub. I'm pretty confident about that. I might even put some money on the slot. I mean, I don't even know. We're gonna see. And then I think it's a wash over UC Davis and Idaho State. So I mean, it's looking like there might be, very high probability. But I mean, it's a step one right now, just trying to figure out their way past Montana, because again, 2 competitive teams, 2 teams that are playing really, really well. And it's going to be one of those things, that we need to come out ready to fire on all cylinders. And you know what, I could definitely see what you're talking about, Dallas, kind of thinking about the game. I mean, to score 35 points against you guys, and it's Northern Colorado. I mean, I could totally see how that, so I regress on that statement. I can definitely see that, but I still think it's a little bit of a different level when we lose or we won 20-28 against Idaho. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and let's go into their 3-headed monster of running backs, man. Yep. I was watching, I did, watch the Northern Arizona game. Just some of the running plays that they run are so dynamic, and how they're moving their guys around, how they're, it was really cool to see, and I thought, just looking at Northern Arizona, they played really well. Their line played really well. They were really getting a lot of push up forward. So, Anthony Edwards, 62 attempts, 353 yards, 1 touchdown. Roshan Johnson, 66 attempts, 236 yards. And then, Elisha Cummings, 23 attempts, 119 yards. And then, you also have Giovanni McCoy that has ran 33 times with, I believe, a net yards of around 50 or 60. And so they can run the ball, and they will run the ball. And so it's going to be interesting how they run, because, with Montana, they don't give up a lot of yards, but if you're going to get some push, you're going to be able to get some yardage. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do their third downs, where Montana is going to come at you and blitz you. What are they going to do with that situation? I think that's where I'm looking at is third down conversion. How is Idaho going to do? What is Montana going to do? Because I think that's going to be the game right there.
And that's the scary thing for me. Idaho has been very bad at third down conversions this season, among the worst in the Big Sky.
35%.
Yeah. When I last looked, which was before Idaho's bye week, so these numbers might be a little bit different, but
Yep.
Idaho is 8th in the Big Sky at that point in third down conversion. It's just not great there, but as you mentioned, Adam, the three-headed monster at running back is the straw that stirs the drink, if we're going to use the sayings. Anthony Woods has been a revelation, true freshman, looks like the most talented guy on the team. And I don't mean that as a slight against Roshan or any of the other guys in that running back room.
Yeah.
Woods is a monster.
Mhm.
Did not expect him to be essentially the starter as a true freshman, because Roshan Johnson is a good running back. The guy has produced in the Big Sky. He's not been an all conference talent. Maybe he would have been with if he was on a different team, but Roshan is clearly the number 2 guy at Idaho right now. And then you have Elisha Cummings as the change of pace guy, who had a really good freshman year last year. This year is kind of the receiving back that is kind of just the change of pace guy when Woods is dinged up a little bit, or they feel like Roshan's just not getting a whole bunch. But Idaho, I think is preparing for this. I think everything Idaho has done over the last few weeks of the season has been to prepare for this game. Logan Floyd, the longest tenured Idaho lineman, actually got moved to center for the Northern Colorado game because they wanted to improve the communication along the line, because the line is filled with a bunch of really young guys. So maybe Angel, it's maybe more of a question for you, but what does that do for an offensive line when the most senior guy is the captain of the line, the center of the line, the guy kind of barking the orders to everybody else? I think that's what Idaho's trying to do here, is get prepared for that Montana environment, get prepared for this is going to be chaos. There's going to be tens of thousands of people screaming at you the entire game. You got to have the guy who knows what he's doing calling the shots out there.
100%, man. I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of strong leaders, and I know there's been more times that I can count that center has saved my ass. Even if it's a second right before the snap, he says, no, fucking left or something like that, or kill, no, something like just that communication factor. I mean, it disperses evenly throughout the line. You need the center to have good communications to make those right reads. I remember a couple years back when we played Portland State and they were playing that hybrid defense, we totally butchered the whole game. Our communication was lackluster. We didn't, yell out the coverages in time in the right fashion. And so because of that, it ultimately ended up to us losing the game against a team who we should have absolutely dominated against. So it just goes to show how strong of a leader you need to have at that center position, in order to be able to communicate properly. And so, 100%, I think that is a smart move to do, to have one of your most senior guys right there in the middle, smack dab in the middle, because it does the whole team good, and it takes a little bit of that pressure off a new quarterback as well. Being able to say, hey, you know what, I can make the call and then focus on the reads that I need to do. It just helps calm down the game, and especially in a place like Washington Grizzly Stadium, you're going to want those nerves to be as calm as possible, because if you come in too high or too low, it just won't be enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even thinking about it, man, just thinking about the game in itself, dude, that's going to be an experience for your guys' quarterback. Jesus, oh my God, I'm just thinking about the nerves, and I think it's a little bit on the nerve-wracking end when it comes to our quarterback as well, too. He was a little bit shaky, though, that Idaho State kind of game, and I don't know if it was just nerves. I don't know if it was just a different environment. So I'm ready for him to get that swagger back, and if I'm being honest, I think he's going to have his best game yet, God willing. When I think about how we're matched, I think for the most part, we're pretty even as far as how we're performing right now in a lot of ways. But I do think that offensive line front is going to take it to the next level, just to give a little bit more stability to Lucas to say, hey, you know what, do your job. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting to see, at least in my opinion.
Well, and I think that, to be able to pull an upset, Idaho, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Hammer, because I might be totally off. I think it's going to come down to McCoy using his legs, because he's going to have to. He's going to have to make that defense kind of think about blitzing a little bit, because we are going to blitz. And so a running quarterback that is able to run, Eric Barrier, keeping our defense honest with a running quarterback usually works in their favor. And then how they're going to use their beast of a wide receiver in Jermaine Jackson, third in the conference 20 receptions, 444. Wow, now I can't talk. 447 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a baller. And so one thing I'm looking for with Jermaine is how they use him. The last couple of games, what the opposing team has done is with their best wide receiver, they motion him to go either into the slot to get their best wide receiver with our safety, or with our safeties. Last game, our safety was out with Trajan Cotton being ejected with a targeting call that, you can.
That was a bullshit call, though. I will say that. I thought it was a bullshit call.
Yep.
I just want it on record for everybody knows.
I understand why they had to call it, but they've got to have some type of like system of one.
It's such a fine line. It makes it so tough.
Yeah. But anyways, Hammer, what do you think about, the quarterback, what he's going to have to do? Also with Jermaine Jackson and your guys' wide receiver, how do you think they're going to use him? And what are your thoughts just basically on that?
So I think you're definitely right there. I see Idaho trying to scheme Jackson away from Justin Ford. On the opposite side of the field, I assume most of the time, you get him in the slot, get him up against Houck or Graves or whoever's in the nickel, get him on one of those guys, try to get him open, try to make a couple big plays that way. But Idaho's receiving core is going to be really interesting this game. Therese Traynor was probably Idaho's best receiver last season, has hardly played this year. Maybe there's a chance he's back healthy for the bye. I know X said he's not going to be ready to go, but we also don't know if he's a guy that's less than forthcoming about injuries. It would not shock me. You got
one of those too?
I think so. Maybe just a tiny bit of a little bit of that gamesmanship in him. We could see Jordan. Man, I am struggling today. Good God.
All right.
Jordan Dwyer. So many syllables. Jordan Dwyer, another true freshman that has been playing for Idaho. He got hurt very early on, but looked like maybe the most explosive receiver on the team. I know that Jackson has been a revelation after he came back from injury, but there's a bunch of guys here. And Michael Graves is a guy that only has 9 catches this year, but it seems like every one of them is a 40-yarder. Idaho is probably going to look for those explosive plays to Jackson primarily, but then if Graves is the guy that's out there, or if it's Dwyer or it's Traynor, probably look the explosive plays there, and then Hayden Hatton will line up on the other side of the field, be the possession guy, the guy that's going to get open, get you 7 or 8, let you move the chains hopefully, or at least keep yourself in close down and distance. That's kind of what I see out of Idaho, is trying to scheme the big plays for, again, Jackson most likely, but there are a couple other guys that you could see him, and then the possession throws to, especially Connor Whitney at the tight end position as well. I think you're going to see a good balance of just those 5, 6, 7-yard throws, trying to just move the ball and eat the clock, because that's Idaho's big thing. If you have the clock, the other team doesn't, and that's X's entire philosophy is just hold on to the ball, drain the clock down, and try to win the game that way.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that Montana has seen that before. So I expect this not to be a low scoring game. I think this is going to be in the mid 20s, probably, maybe even possibly 30s, because I just think that the teams know each other so well. But man, your defense, like you said earlier, is a totally different defense. Your linebacker, I'm going to mess up his name.
Favai.
There you go. That's the one. All conference. He is a beast, and I could see him playing on Sundays. But 48 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack. He's a monster. Tommy McCormick, 25 tackles, 2 interceptions. Linebacker Paul Maiola, 25 tackles, another 2 interceptions there. And then defensive line, Leo Temba and Giuliano Folinko. I probably got those wrong as well.
Giuliano Falanico.
Oh, there you go. There we go. Huh? See, hey, those are hard, man.
Thank you. I get made fun of for mispronouncing names on our show, so thank you.
Simpatico, man. Angel gives me crap all the time.
Hey, man, we're only human, man. It makes sense.
I'll say it wrong.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, now that we're transitioning over to the defensive side of the ball, I mean, what do you think your front seven, or I guess your defense as a whole, needs to do to slow down our offense? Obviously, talking, I think specifically, I think our receivers, it's kind of hard to do that with the type of talent that we have because they're so interchangeable when it comes to our running back situation as well too. You never know who's going to be out there. So really the consistent factors on our offensive side is going to be the same front guys up there blocking for you, and then obviously the quarterback. I guess what do you think the game plan needs to be in order to slow us down a little bit?
The game plan needs to be stick to the formula, stick to the play call, stick to the defense. I think that's kind of what happened to Idaho against Northern Colorado. Too much freelancing, guys thinking they can make the big play, go force the turnover, do the great punch out and get the Kibby Dome rocking. And then what that would be it's instead a 25-yard gain, because instead of just wrapping the guy up and bringing him down, you tried to punch it out, completely whiffed on it, big play. That's going to be Idaho's key here, is the guys like Favai, again, like all conference talent. I don't know if he's quite like a Patrick O'Connell level of player, but he's certainly up there. He's got to make sure he's filling his gaps and just playing in the system. If you're freelancing, if you're moving around, trying to do your own thing and not support the team, that's where Idaho gets beat. And that's why Northern Colorado hung 35 on them. That's what they've got to do. It's simple, and it's not the sexy take, but that's what it is. Idaho's defense is very good if they stick to the plan. I mean, they held multiple Power 5 teams that throw the ball all over the field under 250 yards a game apiece. Like they have proven they can crunch down on an offense and force them into difficult decisions and hard plays and just drives that just aren't going to go anywhere. But it's all about making sure that they stick to the structure. And then lastly, the pass rush has got to get home. Lucas Johnson is terrifying, and I know I've just met you guys, but I kind of hate you just both a little bit for Lucas Johnson, because I'm used to, hey, Montana's quarterbacks, he's going to be mediocre at best. He's going to control the ball, throw a back-breaking pick every once in a while. And Lucas Johnson is one of the best quarterbacks you guys have had in recent memory. And it stinks as I see Idaho just starting to turn the corner to maybe turn this rivalry into something. And then I wouldn't be shocked to see Lucas Johnson score 5 touchdowns and just put it away himself.
Well, and I see him kind of having a game this week. He didn't have as a great game against Idaho State. He was benched because he fumbled and it went to the end zone, which kind of had the momentum kind of swing in Idaho State's favor. I think he's going to play really well. It'll be interesting to see if we have Junior Bergen back. It'll be interesting to see if we have either Braxton Hill or Liam Brown. I don't think that we'll probably have those guys back, but maybe Junior, maybe. I don't think they're going to probably play him this game either, just because of a hamstring issue. They'll probably wait till Sac State. No disrespect to Idaho. But honestly, like that's the one that we have to get. That's the one that I think that everybody is pissed off from last year, because I think we let that one go. And so I think that is going to be a huge play. The quarterback play, if we had, some awesome graphics and, people to watch, it's going to be those quarterbacks, how they're going to do with those defenses. It's going to be the third down conversions for Idaho, and just seeing if this defense can get some pressure and see if they can get McCoy to turn over the ball, which he has not been wanting to do this year.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And when I even think about it, just kind of breaking down my takeaways, I think that your guys' offensive line needs to be ready for the type of pressures that we throw at people, specifically, obviously this Saturday. I think we are extremely efficient, and they do not take the foot off the throat, and that's their mentality. That's the whole defense. I had to play against them for, 4.5 years straight, and I hated it every single day. Afterwards, after the game, we're high-fiving, or after practice, we're giving each other hugs and I love you, bros, and those sort of things. But, oh, my gosh, it was an absolute nightmare. And I just remember thinking to myself, it's like, I play against you guys every single day. I don't understand how other teams are able to kind of break this down and come away with wins. So I think that is going to be the key takeaway in order to just give, obviously, your guys' quarterback a chance. He has the talent. maybe that experience, he's still building on that. And obviously that's where Lucas, shines. He's in this, what is it, 6th or 7th year of football at this point?
I believe it's 6. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
with that, I mean, you just have tons of experience, playing at multiple different levels, multiple different schools, most recently San Diego State, which is a pretty solid program. I think that's where it's going to really have that difference this upcoming week. But if your offensive line is able to give McCoy just a little bit of time, maybe get those nerves underway after the first quarter going into that first couple drives, I think it could be a shootout very easily.
Yep.
And honestly, I've talked to multiple people, and it's kind of funny every time we play somebody that it's one of those things where people are like, you know what, I like that we beat the shit out of teams, but I just want one game where it's it's a little bit more challenging. It's kind of neck and neck and coming down to the wire. Everybody wants those type of games. And I think this will be one of those games where it could potentially fold out that way, simply because I think we always see a different team when they come to Washington Grizzly Stadium.
Everybody wants those games. I'm fine with blowout wins.
Are you? I mean,
I'm fine with it. Hey, a win is a win, man.
What's a season? What's a season ain't a bad thing.
Yeah, like if we just blow out everybody and win the national championship, I'm good.
Fair enough.
I don't quite think you're going to blow out Idaho. I could see this game being a shootout. Absolutely. One thing we haven't really talked about is Idaho is most susceptible to the run. Just about every team has been able to run successfully on Idaho. I don't know what's up with Marcus Knight. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get him fully back, but honestly, if it's Ostmo, if it's Harris, if it's Johnson running out of the quarterback position, that is the terrifying thing. If I was talking to Montana fans and saying, what's the one thing Montana's going to do that Idaho might struggle with, it's running the ball. Idaho's run defense. And again, that goes back to Idaho has to stop freelancing. Those guys have to fill the gaps properly. They have to stick to the play, stick to doing their assignment, because Idaho is very susceptible to the run. And it's going to be interesting to see what Lucas Johnson's going to do. I am terrified, honestly. It's the thing that Idaho just doesn't do particularly well. When the quarterback's on the move, that's when the play starts to break down for Idaho.
Well, and that's Marcus Knight had a great game last against Idaho State with 111 yards a game. So I hope that he kind of builds on that. But with, like Angel said earlier, wide receiver core, running back core, it's a duo of people that you have to worry about. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I am kind of interested in seeing how Montana's linemen kind of keep on developing, because going in, that was the question all year, is how is our lineman going to keep on developing? They've done a great job so far. This is one more step that we need to take and keep on developing that line. With Liam Brown not, a starter being down, let's see the next person that stands up, and is that going to be a place where Idaho kind of tries to take advantage of? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, man, it's so hard, man. It's hard just with football games in general. You just never know what's going to happen. I mean, when you think that you got your team figured out, you saw like a performance like last week. It's awesome to have a dub, and I'm not taking that away. Winning is extremely a challenging thing to overcome and to do. But it's just not to the expectation that you think that you got a team figured out, and so you really never know in the grand scheme of things how something's going to play out. All you can do is hope for the best and be a fan, while watching it. I think, just thinking about this past couple of days leading up to, this podcast, I think it's going to come down to, a pretty competitive wire. I don't think it's going to be a pushover by one side. I do think it's going to be a juggernaut when it comes to our quarterback play and your guys' quarterback play too. It really I just think that we have, talent in certain positions that's going to be overwhelming if we keep that pedal to the metal through 4 quarters. If we come out flat, or if things go our way and we lose the momentum shift, we haven't really seen besides, Idaho State. We've been pretty consistent on those kind of momentum potential changers. I think if we're consistent with our game, it could be very scary for you guys. You guys will hang in there, but I do see it kind of going away just enough to secure, a pretty convincing win over a really talented team. Like you said, before, I can't say and speak to, the teams that I have played against or the rivalry in general the past 30 years. I do know that it's extremely hard to play at Washington Grizzly Stadium, but you guys changed it around at least for this year. And I was literally talking to Adam. I said, hey, this could potentially be a scary team for years to come if Jason just continues to develop these guys.
Yeah, this is such a weird time in the season for this game. Looking at your schedule, Idaho is unquestionably the best team that Montana has played this year.
Oh, that's 100%. Yeah.
Yep. And while Idaho has occasionally punched the Grizzlies in the face before, usually what then happens is a steamrolling and Montana wins by 25 by the end of it. This is not that Idaho team. This is going to be honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen. I can sit here and hope for an Idaho win. I know that Idaho is going to have more fight than they have had in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
But it's also, once Montana takes that first punch and it's okay, this team is here. This team is not Portland State. This team is not Indiana State or Northwestern State, or this is even considerably better than South Dakota at this point.
Yep.
What is going to happen? How do they react? The kind of the first test for Montana. Idaho has already been tested. I mean, they've had the 2 Power 5 losses. Idaho has been through it. Montana quite hasn't. Obviously, the decades of history here seem to show that getting punched in the face is not going to do anything. Montana's going to show up. Montana's going to fight back, and this is going to be a slugfest, I think, until the final whistle, which is not something we've been able to say about the Little Brownstein game for quite a while. So that's what I'm excited for, is honestly just a good game at this point. It's weird coming from, again, haven't had the Little Stein for quite some time at this point. That's all I want. I would love a win. Honestly, I just want Idaho to look competitive and look decent. That's what I'm hoping for. And then year 2, year 3, year 4 of the Eck rebuild, then let's talk about beating the Grizzlies by 40 and just making them little brother all over again.
40? I know Blink 182 just reformed a group, man, but I'm about to go dismantle them. Jeez. Whoa. We're gonna blur that part out of the podcast.
40. All right. Well, one thing that I think we're not really looking at is special teams. So
I was just about to say that.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I was literally just thinking that.
So special teams, I think, is going to play a role in this. So in these rivalry games, some type of special teams always comes up, right? Kick return, punt return. With you guys, field goal kicker Ricardo Chavez, 10 for 10. That's something that we kind of lacking right now. I think our guy Nick Ramos is kind of getting his groove and kind of finding it, but that's something where we're lacking. You guys have our punter is Patrick Rohrbach is a phenomenal talent. Ricardo Chavez for you guys does that, where he's averaging about 38 yards. I think that could play a role in it. Shorting, the field possession or the field position is going to play a role in it. Who has those plays on special teams where, hey, you can point back at the end of the game like, oh, when Junior Bergen ran back that punt return for a touchdown, that was the turning point of the game. Could be something like that. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Dallas. You go first.
Cool.
Did you think since you think in a couple of years you're going to start to win by 40, yeah, you got it.
Hey, I can't come on here and be Mr. Milk Toast. I gotta give something to rile people up and make people hate me. Like, I'm a vandal. You guys are supposed to hate me. This is a really weird. Special teams is a really weird thing because I think both of these teams go in expecting to win the battle in special teams. Yeah, obviously, Junior Bergen, one hell of a punt returner. Idaho's got Jermaine Jackson returning punts. All definitely going to be in the conversation for all conference receiver. Could be in the conversation for all conference punt returner at the end of the year too. Kickoff returns obviously a little different. Idaho has taken out one kick return this year.
They don't kick to us, so that's
exactly. Well, I mean, if Logan Prescott kicks to Malik Flowers, I might have to go out there and have words with him. I would probably get arrested trying to get on the field. But if you
think they might try to challenge the Grizz when it comes to special teams?
I hope not. I really hope not. Punt return, go for it. try to break one, but when it comes to the kicking and kick returns, just leave it. Don't mess with it. Idaho has not proven that they can return kicks, and obviously people have learned to stop kicking to Malik Flowers. And then, as was mentioned, Ricardo Chavez might be the best kicker in the Big Sky. Looks like he might be a guy that could play on Sundays. He hasn't shown quite the range he needs, but he's been accurate. He's been cool under pressure. He was an All-American in junior college. That's the one place Idaho's got it is. I know that you said Ramos is kind of finding his touch there, but we haven't had a missed kick from Chavez yet. He has been otherworldly. So if I'm Idaho, if this is going down to a field goal kick in the final seconds, much happier about Idaho's position in that than I would be Montana's.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's always a tough part about it, man, because as the season progresses, when you look at, Ramos and his ability to, get a little more comfortable back there, it started off a little shaky. I do think that he's found a little bit of his own. He's a little bit more comfortable back there. And I think a big credit to, just what Bobby is. He is a special teams coach. That is his bread and butter. That is where he thrives. That's where everybody knows him for. So because of that, I think he's done a really good job of letting him know, hey, calm down. You're going to be okay. You're going to be in high pressure situations regardless of where you're at, whether we're up by 50 or we're down by 3. It doesn't matter. And I think because of that, where you guys have obviously a great talent in your guys' kicker, I think down the stretch, if it does count down to the wire, that's where he's really going to be able to shine and see what type of player he is. And I think that if I'm going to preface by saying it with that, if something happens where it is a game like that for us this upcoming Saturday, I think that is going to be a huge thing for you guys. And so, do I think it's going to come down to that? I will say this with all respect, no. But you never know. You just never know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So, any last thoughts, guys? Any last thoughts on this game? What you want to see? What your last thoughts are on this game, Angel?
You know what? I think it's just another opportunity to go 1-0. That's the beautiful part about it. You heard Robbie say that a couple of weeks ago when he got high-fived, and he says, what's nice about being 1-0 is an opportunity to go 2-0. And so I think that's the mindset coming into this week. I do think that it was a little bit of a disappointing performance last week for the players, not for the fans, for the players. And so because of that, I think that they're willing to go out and chase some guys, put that foot to the neck and see what we could potentially do. Granted, like Dallas had said, I do think that we are the toughest opponent to date. And I think that you guys are playing some really good football. So it's just about being consistent throughout 4 quarters. And I think we'll come out with the win. But as always, man, at the end of the day, all you want is a good game. You want players to be healthy on both sides. You want a competitive atmosphere. I'd love to see it at Idaho continue to be competitive throughout these upcoming years. And so that's kind of my 2 cents thinking about, what this means for both teams this Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in with my thoughts and then obviously Adam fill in with anything else. But for Idaho specifically, like this is the inflection point of the season. They've passed every test so far. They lost the Power 5 schools, but they're Power 5 schools. You're getting paid to lose those games. And then it was a 1-score game against Wazoo, and then it was 2 scores at Indiana that it got kind of rougher towards the end, but you had to lead at halftime in that game. Yeah. And then have risen to the challenge for every other team. Yes, Northern Colorado was a bit of a struggle. Defensively did not look good. But throughout these 5 games, Idaho being 3-2, much better than I think could have been hoped for in the first year of a rebuild. But Idaho hasn't put together a full game. None of these games, even the 42-14 against Drake, Idaho was trailing Drake at parts of that game because Idaho just shoots themselves in the foot. So Idaho hasn't had a chance to play a complete clean game. They just haven't done it. This is the chance to prove to everyone, hey, there's nothing to lose. You're going on the road to one of the best programs, honestly, one of the best programs historically in the FCS, but especially in the last few years. What do you have to lose? You lose this game, even if you get blown out in this game. You've gotten blown out in this game a bunch of times before. It doesn't change a whole lot for you. But if you go in here, obviously, if you get the upset, then that completely changes your season. And now you are talking about this is a playoff team. But even if you just go in here and you compete and you hang with Montana, Idaho gets out of there with the famous moral victory of we are in year 1 of the rebuild, 6th game under Jason Eck, and we're hanging with the top of the top of the top in not only the Big Sky, but the NCAA. So I think that for Idaho and for the maybe 2 Idaho fans that end up coming over to listen to this because I was on it, that's what we're looking for. And that's what we're going to be talking about on our show in a couple hours is for Idaho, there's really not a losing situation here. Like if you lose the game, everyone's expecting you to lose this game.
Yeah.
If you get out of here healthy and you compete and you at least make it competitive for 4 quarters, I don't believe in moral victories too much, but this is the perfect moral victory for a team that needs to find its footing in the Big Sky Conference.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, this is, you know, I feel better about this game now, only winning against Idaho State 28-20. Like Angel, you said, if we blew them out, I would have kind of worried about this game going into the Stack State game. And so I'm coming off of a bye. I feel kind of more comfortable with this. I do think that Idaho is that sleeping giant, that it looks like they're turning the corner. I really do think that they've got some guys that can ball. And it's going to be a really good game. I can't wait to watch. It's going to be a ruckus crowd because we haven't played a team yet, right? It's a sold out game. Can't get tickets. 26,000 fans. I think that this is going to come down to, you know, like we said, third down conversions, like we said, and then the pressure. How can this young team with a redshirt freshman quarterback, a freshman running back, and handle the pressure of 26,000 fans? How's their defense gonna play? Are they gonna like Hammer? You said, are they gonna stick to the script? And then, you know, Montana, are we going to be playing like we should? Are we gonna, you know, punish this team and go into the Sac State game feeling good? And so I think that Montana's going to pull this out. I think it's going to be a lot closer than probably people think. I don't think it's going to be a field goal. I don't think it's going to come to that, but it's going to be a game to watch. And I think that this game's going to be turning more into a rivalry game for years to come, as long as Jason X stays there. So it's going to be really interesting. But before we get into our predictions, because Angel is just kicking my butt, man. And I've got to come up with a win this week. It is literally like tearing apart a little bit each week that I'm doing so awful. But we have some fan questions. Hammer, you can be sure to, you know, comment if you want to comment. But our West Coast fan, is Robbie Houck an asset or a liability? I kind of told Angel that question, and he's like, what? So the preface of that would be he put down below, young Idaho QB McCord reminds me a little of Lulay and McGee, who both came into Wagriz as freshmen and did pretty well. Do you think he is ready for that moment? I don't think Robbie Houck is a liability. I do think that he is who he is, right? Angel, and I mentioned this to you a little while ago. He's a safety who's downhill, who's going to come and he's going to look for you. He's going to hit you. He's a missile that you want to have in that safety spot. He does his job. He plays bigger than his stature. So I don't think he's a liability. He's the leading tackler of Montana. Are there some things that he does well? Yes. Are there some things that he needs to work on? Yeah, everyone does. So yeah, they're gonna try to find our weak spots in our defense. And sure, like every other team, they're gonna try to put their best wide receiver on our safeties, and that's what they're gonna do. So Angel, thoughts, Hammer, thoughts?
No, 100%, man. I mean, that's a crazy thing to say, man. I think he's 100% an asset. He's everywhere, and that's what you want. You know what I mean? Yep. And when you think of a player like that, I mean, somebody that has your back, somebody that doesn't care how big, how small, how round you are. It does not matter to that type of guy. He'll
Yep.
throw, he'll swing at one of those offensive linemen, even though they're 3-4 times bigger than him. That's just his type of mentality. He has a killer instinct, and that's exactly what you want on a team. I've been fortunate to play with him. I've been fortunate to see him play as a fan. 100%, I'd want that guy on my team any single day. Do I see him as a liability? No, 100%. Especially heading into this game, I think he's gonna, hope thrive just like he has been all season. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming at this from the impartial third-party Vandal perspective, we do have our issues with coaches' kids. So there's a little bit of PTSD when I hear coaches' kid, but there's about a dozen other teams in the Big Sky Conference that would love to have Robbie Houck at their safety position. I would love to have him at Idaho. Yes, he might be a little bit weaker in pass coverage and might give up a few too many completions from time to time, or a big completion from time to time, but like you guys said, the dude is a downhill hitter. And if you want a safety to scare people about don't go over the middle, don't run at this guy, Robbie Houck is the textbook definition of that. And I could not imagine ever living in a world where I would be complaining about, is he a liability? I mean, I guess that's the riches of Montana. Those are the conversations you can have rather than Idaho conversating about how many of these kids shouldn't be on the team next year, or how many of these coaches shouldn't be here next year. A little bit different from our perspective, but I think Robbie Houck is one heck of a dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Last question that we have, guys. McCoy is showing that he can be beware of the D. Asked this question. McCoy is showing that he can be a very good player. He hasn't really turned the ball over this season with only 2 picks the first games against Wazoo. What do we need to do to contain him? Do you think we will force a turnover on him this game? I think we can't let him get out. I think we've got to contain him that way with our defensive ends and make him feel that pressure. If he gets comfortable back there, I think that it could be a really long game. And I think we need to, excuse me, my voice. I think we really need to early put our foot on Idaho's neck to make sure that it doesn't get close, right? Make sure that they don't feel like they can compete to make sure that this game is not a close game. I think that he's going to throw 1 pick. I don't know if that's going to be more than that, but I do think he's going to throw 1 pick. I just can't see him doing what other quarterbacks like. He's not going to throw away the ball. I think that the moment might be in some instances, and it would be hard not to make the extra pass, to go the extra whatever, to get more yardage. I think he might make one of those mistakes this game. I hope he does. But Angel, what do you think?
You know what? I think boils down to what I said earlier. It's all about that offensive line play. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think we do a really good job of just creating some confusion, some chaos, some havoc. And so because of that, I do think that even though he is one of those quarterbacks that you can't let him get to the outside of you just because he'll have the time, he'll have the space. He'll take the yardage if it's in front of him. I do think that when it comes to any team that we play, one thing that I think is very different from a lot of other teams is just our relentless pursuit. One guy misses, you got 3 guys that are, a couple feet
Right there.
away from him that are just chasing you, giving you that pressure. So I think because of that, I think the pursuit needs to be off the walls this week in order to, just make that guy feel a little bit uncomfortable making those decisions.
So from the Idaho perspective here, have to get pressure on McCoy, and it has to come from multiple angles at the same time. If you pressure him from one side, he does have the legs, he will get away from it. If you pressure him up the middle, he's fantastic about moving just enough in the pocket to find the open guy. But it's the better defenses, like again, Washington State, probably the best defense Idaho's played. They're McCoy's only interceptions of the year war against Washington State, and yes, they were his first game starting for Eck. He played a couple games with Trino, but his first game starting on the road in a rough environment, much like this is going to be. They got pressure on both ends, forcing him to up the middle against 350-pound tackles. No, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
Pressure from one side and the center. Okay, you can try to leak out to the other side, but you're not going to get a whole lot done if you're running for your life to one side of the field. That's the key here to getting to McCoy. You have to put pressure on him. He will not make the wrong decision if he's not pressured. But when he's been pressured, again, if you look back at the Washington State game, he went 21 to 32. He had decent numbers. He did have 2 interceptions, but he had 6 sacks. That was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The sacks started to add up, and that was when he started to miss a couple throws or make a bad decision. One of those picks was realistically it was a Hail Mary toss into the end zone, so it wasn't the worst thing. But that's how to get McCoy off of his game. Well, it's just like any other quarterback, really. But you've got to get pressure from multiple sides to make sure that he can't make you hurt with his legs to one side, or getting that extra step in the pocket and finding the guy open down the field for 15 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the time where I make an unbelievable comeback. Angel,
There's no way.
There is a way. There is life.
All right, let's hear it then.
Is it my turn or is it your turn? If I'm losing 0-4,
it's your turn.
Is it my turn?
I won last time. Yeah.
All right, I think it's 31-16 Grizz.
Okay, Dallas, let me hear yours. I want to hear your prediction.
28-24 Grizz.
Oh, there you go.
What? Oh, God. I got to post that everywhere, man.
If this was in Moscow, this is the year the Little Brown Stein comes home. Circle your calendars for 2023. The Little Brown Stein comes home in 2023. It's not this year, but next year. This podcast next year is going to feel a little bit different.
All right.
One of these days we'll hop on yours, man. If that day ever comes, within maybe 20, 25 years, you guys get a lucky one on us, then we'll hop on your podcast and say, you know what, you were right.
You were right.
So I think when I think about it, I want to go 34, and then I'm going to go 24, 34-24.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta get some wins here, because if I don't, I'm gonna be buying some 6-packs, man. So
there you go, man. There you go.
Oh man.
Well, Dallas, man, like we had said before, man, we just really appreciate you taking the time to chop it up. I know it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you because you're on the wrong side of things, but it's all love, man. And we hope. And if you ever come down a game, let me know. We'll get a couple beers. I'll show you around. I'll show you why you need to be a Grizz fan, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Ooh, that sounds like you had me up until the last couple words. There. That's great. If you guys ever want to come to Moscow and find out what it's like to support a good program and a program that makes you feel special, you guys just let me know. Anytime you're in Idaho, just let me know.
Man. Well, we appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, Hammer, for coming on, man, and spending some time with us, man.
Absolutely. Angel, Adam, thank you guys so much. Had a blast. Go Grizz when it's not football season, I guess.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
Have a good one, okay?
Awesome. Have a good night, guys.
All right.
All right.